Hey, welcome back. We're going to take all the blocking that we've got in there out and take a look and see what we need to do for the next step. We'll get this sealed in, so hang on and we'll unload a few things here. Hey, welcome back. Let's take a look. Get a little more light in here so you can see it. But yeah, super solid. It's 24 gauge steel. We will now tape off our lines and get our seams all put together, and then we'll work on the drain. So hang on, I'm gonna grab a few supplies here. We'll get this moved down so you can kind of see what we got going on here. So after we get the seam in, we'll be putting this style drain in there, and as you see, we did a little inset that will be going into. The nut will be going inside that inner cabinet. That's one thing I missed the other night, and I pulled out some of my insulation, as you can see there, so we can make that happen. But let's get this taped off and we'll get our seam filled in right quick here. Won't take too long. If you watch very many of my videos, I always like doing a wide tape in this area. Leave a little bit of overlap so we got a nice seam there. Get all my lines match up real good here. We won't let that sealer set up very long. Probably 15 to maybe 30 minutes we'll get it pulled off. You don't want to let it set overnight. It makes for, you can get it off, but it's not very easy. The tape, it gets really super hard, gets locked down really hard. So you want to definitely get that tape removed while the sealer is pretty soft. Once it sets up, it gets rock hard. If you don't like some of your lines, you can always come back in here with a razor blade and get all these corners kind of cleaned up. All right, didn't take too long to tape off. Make sure all your lines are the way you want them. We're going to take a little razor blade on this one corner back here. Clean it up just a little bit. Man, that really feels good. You know, it had a lot of holes in that bottom plate in there. It's still pretty good shape. It's not like it was rotted up and into the cabinet area. Just mainly it was just sitting in water all these years. So this will give it a lot of good years service now. We'll get this sealed back off. Get a drain tube that can be watched and cleaned out. Not have to, hopefully, keep an eye on it and not let it ever get plugged up again. So let's get our sealer out using the same product that we used on the steel, our 08609 3M. It's a urethane. Make sure you get some gloves on because it will get messy. Once we get this in there and let it set up and get the tape removed, we'll move to the compressor. Well, we'll get the drain in next. My apologies. We'll go to the drain next. Get that in there, and the cabinet area will be pretty well sealed up. Good thing to always look for if you're looking at I don't care if it's a square top to a round top, if you're seeing belt line rust, there's a good chance the drain is probably locked up. Got something in it. So if you see that, take a look at it. I guarantee if you got belt line rust, you got other underlying issues. It didn't rust in that belt line just because it's there. It's because this area right underneath here is holding water, and that's what causes that. So let's get we'll see if my tip's gonna have to be cleaned out here. We did this last night. We'll see if it's still, I tried to cover it up. We'll see if we can get it to push through. Looks like it's gonna definitely do it here. We'll put a pretty good bead in here. This is where you want to seal every edge off. And we'll smear this out with probably just with a paper towel. Once you get a good smooth line, you'll be let it set up a little bit and you'll remove your tape. If you want to let it set up overnight, that's fine. All right. let's smooth that out. We'll use just using a paper towel, nothing special. I sometimes try to get it into a tip, like a little bit of a tip. But remember, your guideline is going to be your tape, so just as long as it gets smoothed out nice and smooth is the only thing that's critical. Those corners are ones you want to make sure you get really into those corners. If you're doing this in the summer, probably going to set up a little bit quicker. All right, that's looking really good. And remember, if you get, after this sets up, you can, if you don't like the way something is set up just right, you can cut that down like a gasket material, and it sets up really nicely so you can actually deal with it. But if you get anything in one of your panels that you didn't plan on getting in there, use a little bit of lacquer thinner. Nothing really, not a whole bunch, but you can take and wipe with a little bit of lacquer thinner. It usually cleans up pretty good. But we're going to let that set up just a bit, and then we'll remove our tape. All right, we'll start with our tape. And this is where, if you get it a little bit too early, it's still a little bit gooey, which is fine. It's just that when you're pulling your tape off, you may have an issue of getting some of the sealer dropping off of your tape. So try to hit your window to where you can keep your gloves clean. I may be just a hair early here, but we'll be all right. I'll show you how this edging is going to look when you're peeling it off. Gives you that nice straight line. And there's my first little finger got into the glue there a little bit, sealer. You may go through several pairs of gloves at this point trying to keep everything clean, which is all right. Nice straight line. And there you go, little pieces here. Take us a little lacquer thinner. See how it wipes up all right. There we go. And we're all sealed up. We will let this set up just a little bit before we continue on, but that's how you get your bottom plate sealed off. And we'll move on to getting the drain put in, so we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Soda Time Restoration. Well, if you've been watching us, we got the cabinet finally installed. We got the lower plate in. We did the seam sealer around the bottom, got it all glued in. We're ready to put the drain tube in. And what I've done, I've changed this a little bit. I've got a drain that will take it'll have a nut that'll come on the inside plate. So that's what you're going to see tonight. We're going to put this down in there. There's a gasket seat that goes underneath this. So that's what we're going to attempt to get done this evening. We will have a drain tube, a clear drain tube, so you can see any kind of blockage at all, see if there's any water standing in it. But we're going to have a drain tube that will go down to our little drain pan. After we get that in, we'll go back to the compressor and start cleaning it up and get ready to do the install on it. All right, one of the first things we're going to do tonight is we're going to run the tubing up to the bottom and get it connected to our drain, kind of a spout, drain tube, whatever you want to call it. This nut will go on the inner cabinet. I'm going to bring the camera down here so you can see what we got going on here tonight. Got a little ahead of myself the other night. Got all my trim on, then realized that we needed to have access so we could run this nut on the inside right here. So we're going to run our tubing first. It will come up from the bottom and then we'll come up through the nut on the inside of the cabinet. So we're going to stick the nut in there first. We're going to try to put this tubing on at the end so it'll allow this nut to come together. Well, it's visually pretty tough to see right now. Now let's try the drill while I'm hanging on to it. All right, let's see if we can get the nut fully tight here now. You'll see the nut just about ready to seat. So we're going to try to tighten that nut up here. Okay, we got the drain hooked up. You can see it. Got the nut on the inside, the tubing hooked up, and obviously it comes out through the bottom. It'll be coming down to the drain tube. Get the insulation back in there right now. Get our trim piece back on there. Like that, our bottom trim piece. All right, so the tank's installed, drain tubes in, all sealed up. Man, a long ways from where we were at several months ago when we started on this project. Kind of got started on it, and then we had to jump off to finish a couple other projects. So, but wow, big difference. Had no idea that we had that much of a rust out on this machine when we first got it. All right, so give me a little bit. I'm gonna move some things around. We're gonna get the compressor out, and we're going to do a little bit of a detail cleanup and new thermostat. So hang on, we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Soda Time Restoration. We're back on that Vendo 56. I call it Vendorlator 56. Tonight, we're moving over to the, I call it the beast. This thing was full of dirt. If you go back to our first videos, when we were washing this out, the dirt was just running through it. Surprised it was cooling. I actually fired this thing up before we took it apart to see how it was working. Everything worked fine except the thermostat wasn't kicking off and on it at the right time. So tonight, if you are getting ready to do a cleanup on a compressor area, we're going to take this thing apart, get everything. We're going to come back in, try to get all these little fins straightened up, take this base plate off. We're going to paint it separately, clean up the evaporator. We'll put a new thermostat on. We're going to get going on this project tonight and see how far we can get. I'd like to get this thing somewhat painted up tonight, and then tomorrow put it back together and get it slid back into this Pepsi machine. One of the first things we're going to do, take the compressor off. If you've got a stand like this that you can get where you can give yourself access, I have taken and wired this evaporator up into the upper cabinet rafter area, so it's just hanging in midair, gets everything so your tubes don't get all bent up, but it kind of gets everything separated where you can kind of deal with some things. But we're going to take this compressor off. We're going to try to just slide the plate out and let everything set on these 2x4s. We'll see how it goes. I've done it before. Probably this one would probably mirror a Cavalier 72 compressor setup. Looks just like it. But we're going to take compressor off first, get it unbolted, and then we'll go from there. But if you can get access to the bottom side of the compressor, takes a 1/2 inch socket. I went ahead and took this down to the car wash tonight and just gave it another hit again. It was just so much dirt coming out of that evaporator. I wanted to make sure I got everything out of there. So hang on to all these little bushings and stuff. You're going to need this when we go back together. All right, we got all the bolts out of the compressor. See how that feels. It is loose. Take a couple screws out here. Get the fan loose next. All right, that should get the fan. Now the fan is loose. Now let's get the condenser loose. I think there's probably 3 holding it on. All right, I believe everything is loose right now. Let me raise a couple things up here. That's loose, that is loose. All right, let's see how we can slide a few of these things out. The plate is out. We are gonna give this thing a good scrub down and see if we can get it cleaned back up, get it painted up a little bit. And then we'll be able to do these individually right here. Once we get everything painted, we'll slip the plate back in there and get everything put back together. So got the plate off. We're gonna use the DA on it. I'm using 320 grit. We'll see how it cleans up here. All right, that's looking pretty good. Not bad, doesn't take very long. Just got a little bit of a film on there. We will wipe this down and tape off the plate. We'll throw a little etch primer down on here since we did get into some of the bare steel. We'll probably etch the whole thing. I use a self-etch product 7220. It's for conditions like this, bare steel. Gives you a little bit of etch. There's probably some direct to metal primers that we could have used. I always like using this. This is a Martin Senior product. Get it at your local Napa Auto Parts store. There's other self-etch products obviously out there. Just make sure it says self-etch or DTM, direct to metal. A good solid coat's all you need just for coverage. We'll let that dry and then come back in. We're going to be using a hammered product on this. Now we're going to let that dry and we'll be right back. Okay, I think it's dry now. We're going to put our, using the Rust-Oleum Universal Forged Hammered. It's a paint and primer all in one. So it probably could have been put directly to metal. Like I said, I like doing an etch on there first. And I really like the texture and the color of this. Gives it a nice finish. Gives it that nice hammered look. Real good detail. Covers really good too. I mean, right now I've got enough coverage. It's got that hammered finish the way I like it. We're going to let this dry. We will move over to our compressor now. I'm going to do a little bit of a wipe down, get everything kind of cleaned up. These two pieces here will go back with the black. They'll look really good. So if you got a evaporator that's got all the fins laid over like this, go in there, kind of tweak them with a, I kind of start out with a little bit of a flat screwdriver, kind of work them out. Takes a little bit of a time, but it will definitely help in the cooling process if you can get all these kind of cleaned up a little bit. Let the air flow through there a little better. They make a fin, what they call a fin comber. If I would have thought of it, I would have brought one from the shop, but I failed to bring mine with me. It would have helped in some of these areas where it's bent over quite a bit. I use a razor blade. Once you get that razor blade up to the side of it, you can kind of take your screwdriver then and then flatten that out. Gives you something to kind of push against. Not sure what got in there and laid these over so heavily in some areas. We'll get these worked up and then I'll come back in with the razor blade and get them lined back up a little better. That's looking a little better. Get this last section here done. They're laid over a little bit harder. Not bad, not perfect, but a long shot from what we started at. Took a little bit of time, but not too bad. Looks a lot better. Let's get the bottom painted right now. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We will let that set up. All right, let's do our aluminum on the top now. All right, we're gonna let that set up. Come back tomorrow and get it on our plate over here. But yeah, that cleaned up really nicely. A long shot from where we started at. We're gonna put the compressor back together tonight, get the new plate. Man, the plate, that hammerite on a plate like that makes that look like a brand new piece. Everything that we've done on this, we've kind of went a little bit deeper than we planned on going. It was just going to be a cleanup, end up being a little bit deeper because of basically because the drain tube was plugged up and it got rusted out. We're going to try to slide that plate in. We've got this kind of held up by one of our rafters up here. So we're going to try to slide everything back in just like we took it apart and get it back together. That's looking pretty good. Let's see if we can get our bolts back in there. Get the evaporator, get it started first, get it tightened back down. All right, let's go to getting the fan assembly bolted in while we got it up in the air a little bit. Makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Okay. Let's get the compressor bolted in. It will have 4 bolts holding it in. Save some of the original decals that was on the compressor. All right, let's get them tightened up. One more here in the back. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is let's get the thermostat replaced here. Should have one little screw here that we got to remove. Get that undone here. And you got 2 screws here that's got to come out. The one that we're going to be replacing it with, as you see, this one is grounded to some metal. The one we're replacing it with is one that's just going to read the air temperature. I feel they're more accurate. I'm sure if we asked 10 different refrigerant guys, they would probably get 10 different answers. But it seems like the air ones are just a little more accurate to me. So lay that aside. This will come off, get our new thermostat, and this will have 2 blades on the back. So we'll be snipping probably a little bit short here, but we'll cut that off and get a new leads on there. And I try to go back far enough to where if it's staying really brittle right now, get it to where if these are that brittle, you may be replacing this whole wire. Right now, as you see, pretty nice, not too bad, not too bad. Make sure your blades are going on nice and tight before you crimp a set on. Make sure they both going really tight, like so. That's good. Strip a little bit of that wire off. Maybe just a hair longer than that. There we go. Give them a little tug, make sure they're good and tight. Okay, that all feels good. We're going to tape those with some electrical tape. If you're buying electrical tape, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Make sure you buy a good electrical tape. Don't buy the cheapest thing you can find, because you will find a lot of heat. If you got them sitting outside, that electrical tape will unravel on you. I always say get the best electrical tape you can find. I'm using 3M tonight, and no, they didn't give me anything for free. I wish they would. I tend to buy there's probably 3 qualities. I try to buy the best. It's probably $8 or $9 higher than the cheap stuff, but it's not like you use a ton of it. But get all those end connections all wrapped real good. Protect them. Just like that. Now the new thermostat will go in this compartment right here. Pop the little plug out that they had on that one. This one here will have a dial on it. Okay, we got the thermostat hooked up. We will get the knob put on here right quick. We'll turn it all the way off. Should be right there. We'll leave this sticking up for now, just like this. Next thing we're going to do is run some of the insulation tubing across this unit while we got it, or we can get to some of this stuff. Makes it kind of nice. This insulates your refrigerant. Probably didn't have any from the factory. Definitely cleans the unit up. Gives us some good protection. And where this goes up into the cabinet, we'll probably leave a little extra here. We'll cut it off later and leave it hanging for here right now until we get it into the unit. I always get the one with the sticky tape in it, so once you kind of get it the way you like it, and then I'll come back in and we'll release the tape, and then I'll zip tie this all together. That's looking pretty good. Put a few more here. All right, we are pretty close to getting ready to slip this into the cabinet. We'll leave this loose here if I end up cutting that off. Okay, let's get everything unwired here and get ready to move it towards the compressor area. All right, so if you're getting ready to put your compressor in, there's only one way it'll go in. The condenser needs to be to the front of the machine. If you look at most round top stuff, the condenser is always in there sideways, not out to the front like this. So it's a little bit different. So this is how you would probably want to slide it in. So if you're getting ready to slide this in, the condenser will be to the outside. On most round tops, that condenser would be slid in there sideways, which without even thinking, that's the way I thought it was supposed to go in. Then no, it goes in like this, just like so. That really cleans that up, makes a little bit more understanding why the top of this gets a lot of dents in it. It's so exposed when you open the door, a lot of stuff probably gets dropped on this. So now I understand why those were all folded over earlier whenever I had to clean all that up. You'll have a little bolt hole here that you'll hit that holds that plate in. Get that tightened up like so. But wow, that is looking so much better. We will take the drain pan. That's kind of a definite before. We'll take this to bead blaster tomorrow and get this all cleaned back up, but that will be laying in the bottom along with our drain tube hookup. And this is where hopefully your water doesn't produce a whole lot of water, but hopefully if it does, it gets here and goes down the drain. We will get everything zip tied up, get all the wiring laid out so it's all laying there where we need it to be. We'll move over and start assembling the rack. So once we get the rack back in there, we're heading towards home on this deal. Hey, thanks for staying with us tonight. Maybe a little bit more detail than we needed to give on putting a compressor back in, but it is looking a lot better. So thanks for staying with us. Hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, throw some comments in there. But man, it's been a great project for especially the first time to do a square top for me. Everything's pretty well similar, but just a little bit different. But thanks for staying with us, and hopefully we'll catch it and we'll get that rack put in and get some shelves put in, and may even get the door hung on this next one. So thanks for viewing, and we'll catch you on the next one.